start with a team building activity. We will then have some discussion time in your inquiry groups to discuss the materials that you worked with to prepare for today's session. Then we'll bring it back together for group discussion. We'll move into a preliminary brainstorm with your inquiry groups because we want you to start to think about today the topic of your podcast, as well as your audience, your intended audience of that podcast. And then finally start to think through what would be a logical journal article to select to discuss your topic. Now, the hour that we have together will not allow you to do all of that. So we're hoping that you continue the conversation on your own time in your inquiry groups. And on Moodle, there is a document for you to complete by July 5th, but we'll get into talking about that. After your preliminary brainstorm, we'll do a brief, quick activity. Then we'll talk about division of tasks, and then finally some Q&A. So that's our plan for today. And soon we will meet in our inquiry groups. I'm just going to put you in those now. So that takes me a few seconds here. But in the meantime, who's got a good topic to discuss? We'll have coffee talk, so to speak. Anything anyone wants to share? Exciting things.
What about the mentors? I was very excited to see some of the peer collaborators. Have any of you reached out, or do you have any thoughts about who you're matched with?
I sent the email, but I didn't get yet my answer, so I'm still anxious, waiting.
Very good.
I already emailed my mentor, and he even replied, and we have already set the 3 scheduled meetings. Wonderful. For the program. And I read a little bit about his profile. It's very interesting because he has the part that is missing that I want to complete in my profile. So he had the academic and the professional. I started the professional around 7 or 8 years ago. Then I had to stop this part. And now I think I can really, it's very beneficial to discuss with him this part in addition to the academic. So I'm happy to have him as a mentor.
Wonderful. And I bet you bring some perspective and knowledge to him that's new and new.
I hope it's a win-win situation.
All right. So in your inboxes, your email inboxes, you will soon receive a list for scavenger hunt items. We're going to start just very lightly today. And in your groups, when I open the rooms, you and your inquiry group members will have 5 minutes to find the items that are listed on the scavenger hunt list. Okay, so check your email. It's in there in the next 30 seconds or so. And I'm going to open all rooms and I will have you dive right in. Oh, another one from Cinderella. Oh, I like that color. That's great.
My son's, it's a small.
How about a 4-legged friend? I see Diana's. Anyone else have a cat or a dog or any other 4-legged creature?
Yeah, sleeping on my food.
Cute.
Hey, Cinderella has a stuffed one. Excellent. Bike helmet from Natalia. Great.
Oh,
okay.
No.
Very important question coming up. Coffee or tea? How many people prefer coffee?
Coffee.
Raise your hand if you prefer coffee. Cafe.
Amanda.
Yes. All right. How about tea? Who prefers tea?
I have a tea in special.
Oh, nice, Excellent. Other teas?
Yeah, me too. I got this one specifically from my Azerbaijani student. He was very nice bringing it to me. It has, I wish I could, transmit the smell of it. It's so nice. Yeah, the leaves
Oh,
are there.
nice, Anita. Mark drinks coffee. I drink tea. Javier, what do you drink?
Tea.
Tea. Excellent. All right, how about a musical instrument? Violin. No. Ooh,
Wow.
guitar.
Not for me.
That-
Husbands, I don't play this.
I thought about that as well, Cinderella.
Oh, look at these, they're beautiful. They're all strings. Anyone play any wind instruments
That's beautiful.
or percussion? We could have a whole orchestra. Oh, excellent. How about jersey of your favorite team?
National team.
Hey, nice, Darko. Cinderella.
Okay. Let's see.
Mess.
Zara, you have a hat?
Yeah.
Which team?
Queensland.
Excellent.
Look at that.
It's a rugby. It's a rugby league team.
Rugby.
Rugby.
Yes.
The All Blacks. No? No. Right.
Great.
Wallabies.
Does anyone have a food unique to your particular geographic location?
Yeah, I've got paprika, the
Is that a
spice.
tea for Anita? Is that the same tea?
Yeah, we have, but I'm not coming with that particular food, which is injera to Ethiopia, which is made from a unique cereal of Africa, which is F. Did you have heard about F?
No?
No.
No. What about injera?
Can you write it in the chat?
Yeah, let me.
The name of the food in the chat?
Okay.
Thank you, Cisse. Does anyone have anything to show us?
I only have paprika, which is a spice here in Hungary. We put it into everything, basically. So
Goulash.
yeah,
This is
that's
nice.
it.
Excellent. Oh, Landari.
It's called betel nuts.
Oh, very
Betel
special.
nuts. You chew it, it's like coffee.
Oh, wow. Look at Bakshilo.
Look at the bread.
I found in my route only Uzbek breads.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's a part of it's like a bigger bread.
Oh, wow.
So welcome in Uzbekistan and
Thank you. Amira, what were you holding up?
Sweets, Tunisian sweets. Yeah, it's very good to taste it. It's like at the end or during the parties or during if you are going to celebrate something that we actually distribute this kind of sweets.
Beautiful.
Oh, I'm hungry now. Okay, we'll finish with, does anyone have anything with the ITD logo on it?
Oh, no.
Diana has.
Hey, there it is on your phone.
I can know.
You open up Moodle, you'll see ITD logo everywhere, right? Okay, great. So hopefully that was allowed you to have a little fun with your inquiry groups. You all will be working
up,
together
actually.
a lot over the next, remaining 2 weeks plus.
And when we're
So
together in person, we can share the prizes for your team. You have to
yeah,
bring
maybe ice cream.
you have to bring the food item you showed with you when we come together.
Yeah, I think my food item would have been ice cream.
Yeah.
Very common. Well, it's common everywhere, but especially in the northeast. All right, so let's move into something a little bit.
Let me
more
show you.
serious.
Let me show you what injera means.
Oh, you're gonna share, Cisse?
Yeah. Here is injera. Yeah. Is that possible to see?
It's difficult.
It's hard to see, but we can look it up. We can look it up after.
Send us.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Nice.
There is injera, which is made from different components of spices.
Wow.
And a bread form is made from teff, which is a unique cereal which is found in Ethiopia. Okay, by now actually it is produced in Netherlands, South Africa, but the origin is Ethiopia. As is that of coffee. Do you know the coffee is originated from Ethiopia, which is a particular place known as Kaffa?
Will you make it for us when you come?
You can, yeah, really. I will do that.
No. No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
All right. I apologize for the barking dog. My four-legged friend is watching another dog go by. We are going to move into our breakout rooms again. And I want you to think about 2 questions. I put them in the chat. Think about the takeaways that you found most useful in developing, when we think about developing content of a podcast. Okay, so there's kind of 2, well, I like to think about it as 2 components in developing a podcast. One is your content, and then the other aspect is obviously all the technical portions of it and the recording and the editing and such. So I want you to think about what are some things in terms of the content of a podcast, what we could call maybe useful tips to consider as you think about developing your content, and what are important technical considerations. Okay, so you hopefully were able to review the pre-recording from Dr. D. Shabazz and read portions of the articles that we provided you. So think those through in your inquiry groups, and I'm going to put you back into those groups. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of that prompt, feel free to with your camera, at least, one person in the group, because once we're in breakout rooms, you'll lose sight of that. Okay. I'm going to give you about 7 minutes or so in those breakout rooms. Were you in the middle of your sentence and it kicked you out of your breakout room?
Yeah, but I was almost through.
Sorry about that. Rude interruption. Technology rules sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we will, for time's sake, we'll briefly share some of the ideas that you came up with. The first question was more about content. So any useful hints that you all discussed in your groups about content, helpful tips? I know this is a lot of, for many of you, this is a new medium, right? The podcast is something new. So we're all kind of starting on a similar level here, including myself. I've never developed a podcast, so I'm excited to learn from all of you and with you. Amira.
Yes. So the idea come of the groups or the person that are forming our group, our inquiry group. And since we noted that the 4 of us are from Africa, we were thinking about the topic on Africa, and the question maybe would be how to reduce poverty in Africa. Mainly thanks to maybe enhancing the transactions among countries that belong to Africa. Also, Tandai was supposing to talk about the way of exporting natural resources from his country to other countries in Africa in a cost-effective way, so as we can reduce poverty and increase economic growth. Yeah, so this is an overall overview of what we were discussing about.
If I may say, this probably doesn't need to be said, but as one of the difficult things is going to be to select one topic. I think it is better to take one topic and go into it in details rather than try to do a survey of many topics. So that's going to be hard because those are all wonderful tools for poverty alleviation and reduction. So But
Yeah.
yeah.
So what do you mean is to be maybe more specific on how
Yes.
to reach the
Right.
goal? Okay.
Yeah, take one particular, there you mentioned several instruments having to do with trade, the role of natural resources, distribution, and just take one and dissect it.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Got you.
And so it sounds like your group actually started to brainstorm topic a little bit, which we'll do in a minute. But the takeaway is, as Javier said, specify a topic and look in depth at that topic rather than dabbling in like a few topics. Great. Hessa.
Actually, I was, do you want us to say our topics or do you want us to say what we've learned from the content?
Exactly. What are some takeaways about your podcast content that we should remember?
Storytelling. So when we are going to form the script of our podcast, it should be in a storytelling. It doesn't mean that you need to write a specific script. I mean, it's okay to do a script for the intro and the outro. But when it comes to forming the content for the podcast, it should be in a way of a storytelling, as well as we need to make sure that it's for specific audiences, and the topic and the content also should be specific. So we started with my group, the second group, a topic at the beginning. We also discussed that with Dee, and she asked us to narrow it down. And after meeting with the group, we almost managed to narrow the topic. So I think we are on the same page of whatever a podcast needs to be or constructed. So yeah.
Thank you, Hessa. That's a helpful summary. I think one of the key features there that you point out, you've got this balance of having knowledge of what you're going to say, right, without sounding automated. So it's this idea of, yes, scripting like an intro and an outro, but then the rest of that, the meat of the sandwich, so to speak, is very much, it happens organically. So what we're going to be working on as we develop this script is thinking more through the points or the central questions that we want to be sure that we address, so that it doesn't sound like I'm asking a question and someone's responding and it has this, scripted feel to it. So it is that fine balance of having enough knowledge about the topic and what you're going to talk about without sounding scripted. Great. Other ideas in terms of content? Laura.
Yeah. Hi, hello everyone. We have a I think we were very enthusiastic about choosing a subject, a topic. I know nothing about this topic, but I now love the topic. So that's great. It's a sharing economies. And I think what we are discussing, we have different, we come from different disciplines. One thing that I found quite stirring, and I told my group, is that perhaps, I don't know, in this particular topic, it's nice to, I'm not going to do an interview to an Uber driver now, but to have the personal experience, like, okay, or to try with the story of someone who drives, I don't know, Uber, or who is okay, here in Argentina is Rappi, Pedidos Ya, and to know how it's going now, how it went. And then at the end of the podcast, what are the challenges for these people in the pandemic with the COVID-19? So perhaps you have a story there, and in the middle you have all the different approaches of my excellent colleagues at my group. Okay. I don't know what you think about it.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
This is great. So these are things to consider as we move into our content development, which will be happening in the next week. So take these points with you. I think we will table our discussion about the technical considerations, because that will be something that we can shift to, you know, our future sessions when we get into the more technical aspects of production. But what we will do now, and it sounds like some of the groups have already done this, is get back into our groups and start to think through what topic you'd like to look at, what your intended audience is, and then remember that the idea is that you will discuss or highlight a journal article in your throughout your podcast, right? So you'll center a journal article and take the content of that journal article and relate it to whether it's your own context, whether it's a particular issue, a particular current event, but use a journal article as kind of the central aspect of your discussion, if that makes sense. So you can choose a journal article that you'll be exposed to throughout your 3-week program as part of this program, or you might opt to select a journal article not related to this program. What I can do is provide you a bibliography. We only have the first week outlined for you at this point, but what I can do eventually is provide you a bibliography of all the different resources that you will be accessing throughout your 3 weeks. So you could start to look at that. I'm going to highlight Moodle here for a minute because I want to draw your attention to, Javier, do you have something?
Oh, no.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to an assignment, which will help you and your group think through your topic and your intended audience and such. So you all can see my Moodle page? Yes? Okay, so again, if you scroll down, you've got your academic sessions here, keep scrolling, inquiry groups, podcast development and production. Hopefully you saw, you know, all of the resources for today and you watched Dr. D's pre-recording and did your readings and such. And then you'll see that there's this assignment for Monday the 5th. What we'd ask you to do is, if you don't finish today, which we doubt you will, because we're only going to give you, you know, about 10 minutes or so in your groups, to think through this particular assignment and then upload it to Moodle. And you can do that by adding submission and just dragging this Word document here. Once it's completed, you can just drag that into the submission area, okay? We only need one from each group, so decide amongst your group who would submit that. But all this is asking you to do is think through the same things I just prompted you about, right? What's the topic of your podcast? What's the intended audience? And the link to your chosen journal article. So just 3 things. It's just to formalize the process of it. Okay, so in your inquiry groups now, you can start to have that discussion. We don't expect that you finish that discussion, but you can start, it sounds like a lot of you already have, but you can start to brainstorm a bit, taking into consideration what we just discussed about content. Any questions about your next task in your breakout rooms? Any other feedback, Javier?
Just to reiterate, you can choose from topics that you're covering in the program or not for your journal article, or things that have been mentioned by our lecturers, even if they're not part of our master's list.
Great. All right. I will give you all.
I have a small question.
Yes, Sandrella.
Actually, when we saw on the program about the session, we saw Dr. D would be joining us, and we had prepared, we wanted to ask her opinion about our topic. So I don't know if one of you can help us in order to gain time and join us in the inquiry if we don't want to waste the others' time now.
Excellent. So you and a group have already met, you're saying?
Yes, we met and we are not sure about a small detail concerning the topic and the audience.
I can go. Just Katie, you can send me to that group.
Exactly. Yep. We'll put you in breakout room and Javier can join you.
Thank you.
All right. I'll give you about 7 minutes to start this discussion. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for your engaging conversations. I was able to visit most groups, and it sounds like a lot of you have even taken the time to meet already outside of these meetings, which is fantastic. It's exactly what you want to be doing, connecting with each other, thinking things through, planning. And so continue that trend if you would. Start to think through those prompts, you know, the topic, the audience, and the journal article. And again, if you can provide that worksheet, I don't know what else to call it, that form, if you can provide us that form by Monday, July 5th, we'll be able to look at it. I'm sure Javier will, you know, have some constructive criticism in terms of how to narrow your topic further if that's needed, or whatnot. So thank you for all the work that you're already doing on this. It's exciting to tap in and hear or visit each group and hear what you're all coming up with. I want to just return to our agenda. We don't have a lot of time together. And so I'm going to scratch one of our activities that we were going to do. I do want you to start thinking through, and I'll put this in the chat, maybe when you meet with your group next. So rather than taking time to put you into breakout rooms now, because I want to give you all a little break before our next session, think through, and again, you can have this as just a prompt for when you do meet next, but think through your division of labor, right? Not everybody will need to be a voice, for example, on the podcast. You might choose to all have your voices on the podcast. That's great. But some of you might have more behind the scenes roles. So think through a little bit of, you can ignore that 6, but think through a little bit of the division of labor. This is a big undertaking. Podcasting, as you might have heard in Dee's video, the editing process is extremely laborious, right? For like a 10-minute podcast, which we're asking you to produce, there might be hours of editing involved. Okay, so think about how you'll divide and conquer some of the elements that go into podcast creation, not just the script writing, but the editing. You know, how do you tap into each other's strengths? So that could be certainly something that you discuss when you're in your inquiry groups next, and thinking through who will do what. Okay. I think at this point, we will conclude with any questions that came up in today's session. So feel free with our remaining, you know, minutes. We'll wait for Professor Schneider to come, but if there's questions that are burning now, feel free to ask them. Joie.
Hi, Miss Katie. I was wondering if the podcast will be available to us even after the program, and if I may also, for example, if I'll be conducting a training, is it okay for me to also use the podcast of another group? Do I need to like email them for permission, or maybe ITD for permission?
That's a very good question. So we will be finding and this is a conversation we're going to have with Dee probably tomorrow, but finding that host site or the platform where it will be housed. So you will have access to all 4 podcasts, and you can use those as you wish. So that's another thing to consider as you're thinking about who your audience is, right? Is it your own students, for example? Is it a larger community, for example? Great question.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Any questions that you have, feel free to email me, or if it's technical related, feel free to seek out Dr. Shabazz.